Hi, I'm May. Welcome to Passages and Promises. This is a podcast that invites immigrant guests, each with their unique stories and experiences, to share everything from comfort foods to family history. Because becoming a global family starts with embracing the stories that make us who we are. Passages and Promises reveals the human stories behind the immigrant tag. Starting this episode, we're going to try something a little bit different. While I'll still be bringing you interviews with amazing immigrant guests, I'm also going to be sharing more of my own stories, experiences, and reflections to dive deeper into what it's like to grow up between cultures, navigate family traditions, and explore the world around me. I hope it gives you a new way to connect with the stories that shape us. You can also find me on Spotify, Instagram, and TikTok. Alright, without further ado, let's get into today's episode. Okay, so today I wanted to talk about favorite childhood meals or food traditions and the story behind them. For me, one meal that I find really valuable in my life is temaki sushi, which is basically DIY sushi. I mean, it's kind of a luxury for me to be describing as a childhood meal, but I think it still counts because it's been an important part of my life every one of my birthdays, and it's been custom to eat temaki sushi or the DIY sushi on my birthdays and also on New Year's Eve, I think. So I want to talk a bit about that. Basically, temaki sushi, you can do it in a variety of different ways, but the way we usually do it is we just buy the sushi, I guess, quote unquote toppings from grocery stores, and we also made the white rice with vinegar, and we also bought sheets of nori seaweed, and so we just had that all laid out on the table, and we took whatever we liked, put it in the sheet of nori with the vinegar, rice, and whatever toppings that we liked. I'll tell you some of the toppings that we had. I think we had salmon, tuna, salmon roe, cucumber, natto. And my mom also made tamagoyaki, which I guess is fried eggs ? But it's not really. It's a bit different in Japan. It's a bit sweet. And it has a little bit of sugar in it, so it tastes a bit sweet. But so we had a bunch of different sushi toppings, and that was the highlight of my entire year because I've always loved sushi since I was little, and I would always request to have temaki sushi on my birthday, and I don't think I can remember the last time I didn't have temaki sushi on my birthday. And that says a lot because I moved from Tokyo to New York City when I was 9 years old, and New York City, it's a different environment, but we kept the tradition alive of eating temaki sushi on my birthdays and on New Year's Eve. And I think it's very precious because it's something that we love to eat and something that we've kept true to ourselves in a way. Ever since I was young, I would always go to many different sushi shops. There are, of course, those cheaper rotating sushi places. I think a lot of you guys have seen it on social media, like TikTok or YouTube or whatever, or Insta. There are rotating sushi plates that are carried around on a conveyor belt, and you just wait until you see a dish you like and you snatch it. And so basically how that works is the waiters see the color of the sushi plate that's left empty because you ate the sushi, right? And so at the end, when the waiter comes to get your check, they can see the different colors of the sushi plates, and the different colors have different price values. So for example, a blue plate might be 500 yen, which I think right now, because of inflation and all, I think it's only $3 or $2. No, I think $3. And then a different colored plate might be less expensive or more expensive, and then they all just add that up. And basically that's how it works, right? So I always went to those places. They're called kaiten sushi. It literally means rotating sushi. So I went to those kinds of sushi places, but I also had the amazing opportunity to visit more luxury sushi restaurants, perhaps because I was in Japan, but also, I happen to live near good sushi places, and my parents were lucky enough to be able to afford it, so they let me experience such luxuries of food since I was young. So I got to taste like amazing sushi, and the the thought of like raw fish has never disturbed me ever. And it's always been one of my loves. So I don't know when exactly it started or who started it. Like, I was probably influenced by my parents who decided to have temaki sushi, like DIY sushi, on New Year's Eve, and I probably tasted it and was like, oh my gosh, I want to have this on my birthday, and that probably just continued. But I like to think that it's a tradition I've helped keep up. Anyways, so sushi is one of them, right? But it's specifically DIY sushi. Temaki sushi. Okay, I'm gonna tell you, it's not really DIY sushi. The literal translation is hand rolled sushi, so it means like you're doing it with your own hands. And I think the beauty of it is you get to control how much of the toppings you want. If you want an entire like 3 tablespoons of salmon roe with four four slices of tuna, go ahead. Like, that's amazing, and you get to do that because it's your special celebration and it's your dinner, your hand rolled sushi, your DIY sushi. And I think that's what I loved. But I also loved that we always ate it at, the dinner table, usually on a very celebratory day. On New Year's Eve, my dad would pull out his phone and see, I think, which direction we're supposed to eat the sushi in to have the best luck for the next year. And I remember doing that in Japan. We haven't really done that anymore in New York City, but I think that us just keeping up the tradition of eating hand-rolled sushi is enough? Okay, so that's one childhood meal that I love, right? Oh wait, no, I have more to tell about the sushi situation. So basically my grandparents have houses in both Japan and America. And back when we lived in Japan, they also spent a lot more time in Japan than in the US. So, anyways, back when we lived in Japan, they also lived in Japan and fairly close to. I think it was maybe like a 20 to 30-minute drive by car. Oh, obviously by car. If my perception of time wasn't wonky back when I was like 6, 7 years old, sorry guys. I would sleep over at my grandparents' house often. Usually it was for fun, but sometimes it was because my parents were like really busy with work or like they just needed a break, and I was completely fine with that. It was also because like my younger brother is like 3 years younger than me, so back then when I was younger and when he was younger, they kind of had to juggle raising both of us, but I was the kid who threw tantrums a lot, so I was probably a lot to handle. Anyways, so I slept over at my grandparents' house a lot, and oh, I have so much to get into, but for lunch, my grandma and I would make natto sushi. It was always natto sushi with a specific brand of natto, and I have no idea what brand it is, but I loved it so much, and I loved the way the vinegar and rice tasted for some reason, specifically at her house. Maybe it's the nostalgia, but I remember it tasting so, so good in her house. For lunch, my grandma and I would make natto sushi, or natto rolls. And so basically how we did it was there's this thing called a makisu, which is basically like a bamboo screen, I guess, a bamboo mat, but it's made of very, very thin bamboo sticks. The diameter is probably slightly bigger than a toothpick's, but it was like much longer and much sturdier, and it was just like bamboo sticks laid out so you could roll whatever sushi roll you were making. But anyways, we would lay a nori sheet on that, and then we put the vinegar rice on top of it, and then I remember us like using a chopstick to like lay out a small indent through the middle of the rice to place the natto. And we would try so hard to get the portions right every single time. And because we didn't want to have like too little natto in the natto roll, but if we did too much, it always flowed out of the sides, and we didn't want that either because that got messy in the presentation. Like, Gordon Ramsay would be super upset, and obviously we don't want to upset Gordon Ramsay. So we would like try super hard to get the portions right, and I would be giggling and putting small bits of natto in the indent that we created through the middle, and then we would roll it. That rolling process was a test to see if we put enough or too much natto in it. After that, my grandma handled the cutting because I couldn't use a knife back then. I was like super young, right? And then when we served it to ourselves, we presented it to ourselves in a way that I felt satisfied with, and it tasted so much better with my grandma than it was at any like luxurious sushi place. And so that's definitely one of my favorite memories, I think, and will continue to be one of my favorite memories. But continuing on with the whole grandparents sleepover thing, there were a lot of like customs at my grandparents' house specifically. Like there were a lot of things that we did repeatedly over and over again. And one of them was that in the morning it was always pancakes and bacon. But the pancake had such a specific taste to it. It's not like a very sugary one. I could probably find the batter somewhere at the grocery store near her house in Japan, but it was just different. And the size, there was like a specific size of pancakes that she had. Like if you form two L's with your hands, well, one L with your left hand and then a reflection of that with your right, and then connect the two index fingers and the two thumbs, that's around the size of the pancakes, and it was specifically this size. And I just found it so perfect too because that's the way my grandma did it, and I loved the way she did it. So we would always have that with syrup, and this is where I learned to use like a butter knife to cut things because they were very particular about etiquette and manners. So they taught me how to use a butter knife to cut things and cut the pancakes smoothly. And my grandma always also made like bacon in the mornings, and I loved that too. And then for dinner, usually it was, oh my gosh, for dinner it was usually like croquettes. I think that's how you pronounce it. In Japanese it's korokke, and in Japan it's like a very common dish. It's not really like a luxury or a French expensive dish or anything like that. So my grandma would make it, and she actually shared me the recipe, so I definitely have to make it sometime too. But I would help her make it, though I barely did anything. I think the food definitely tasted great, but the best part was making it with her and eating it with her and grandpa at the dinner table whenever I was at a sleepover at their house. And the memories are what makes it so special to me. I definitely have tons of more special moments involving food. So I want to know what your guys' favorite childhood meals are, because mine are, let me go over it. Mine are the temaki sushi, hand-rolled sushi, pancakes that my grandma made, the natto rolls that my grandma and I made, and the croquette or the croquette with like potatoes and just a bit of like beef, in it. And those were my favorite. And I'll definitely make another episode about childhood meals because I just have so many stories to share with you guys about food. And I think food is such a special way to connect with other people, whether they're from the same culture because you share the same like cuisine, or a different culture that has similar dishes, or maybe that doesn't, and you want to exchange information about the delicious foods that each of your cuisines have. So I'll definitely make another episode about foods, and let me know what other things you want to hear me talk about. I still eat a lot of these meals, but when we're talking specifically about the ones that my grandma makes, it's a bit hard because, we live on the opposite sides of the United States. And it's not every day that I can go fly there and be like, hey, grandma, I want to eat your pancakes. So whenever I do get to travel there, I do try to have her pancakes and her bacon and her croquettes. But for the natto rolls specifically, it's a bit hard because she doesn't have that brand of natto in the United States. So I think the next time I'll be able to eat it is if my grandparents ever travel back to Japan again at the same time that we do, and we go to find the specific brand of natto that she always used to make the natto rolls. So yeah, I still love to eat her food because they're part of what made my childhood so special. but it's definitely a bit harder. And in terms of the hand-rolled sushi, I've talked about it a bunch, but I still have it every birthday and every New Year's Eve, so that's nothing new. And my favorite foods have definitely changed over time. When I was young, I would probably say like chocolate, but there are foods that have always like consistently been in like my top 10s. Again, I'll be talking about them in a different episode, so please tune in. Also, I haven't really tried to make the foods that my grandma makes by myself, because part of what I love about the foods is the memories that come with it and the fact that she makes it. And so I don't really want to ruin it by making something that tastes a little different and then ruining my entire perception of what that food was. So yeah, I definitely hope that I can eat them again. I think it's interesting how my favorite foods do reflect my cultural identity, because not everyone's gonna say that their favorite childhood meal is handmade sushi, right? Like, it was definitely possible because my grandma and I made it with the natto that she found at her local grocery store, and the tradition of eating hand-rolled sushi wouldn't have begun with my family if we hadn't been in Japan or if we weren't Japanese. So I think you can tell that my childhood or my life has been impacted heavily by who I am and what kind of life I've led. I'd really love to hear about your favorite childhood meals though, so leave a comment down below and let me know. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Passages and Promises. If you have a story to share or just want to reflect, leave a comment. I'd love to hear how it resonated with you. And if this episode resonated with you, don't forget to share it with someone who might connect with it too. You can also visit the blog on my website where I write about each episode and share some of my own reflections along the way. We all have our passages and promises, and I hope this podcast gave you a moment to reflect on yours. See you next time when we'll explore the next person or my journey and the promises they or I carry. Bye-bye!